Good evening, everyone. This meeting is now called to order. This is the Finance and Economic Development meeting for Monday, March 6th. I am the chair, Councilmember Johnson from the 7th District. This time I will call roll for those members present. Vice Chair Hartley, 4th District.
Present.
All right. Councilmember Oliver, 3rd District. Councilmember Bracy at large.
Present.
Councilmember Field, 8th.
Present.
And Councilmember Spadola at large.
Present.
And Council President Congo.
Here.
As a friendly reminder, only members of the committee should be making motions and seconding. At this point, I'm going to just move right to the agenda if there's no questions from council members before we start. All right, and those, I don't know, I'm trying to see who's on Zoom, but I think I got everyone. But please raise your hand if you would like to be recognized and you're on Zoom. Okay, all right, 'cause I can't really see that, so. All right, well, without further ado, I'll just move right to the agenda. As we do, what we have for the past 8-9 months, we have an update on the American Rescue Plan funding spending efforts. Is there anyone from the administration here to speak on that topic?
Certainly. Good evening, Councilman Johnson. This is Stephanie Merkler from the Mayor's Office.
Okay, good evening, Ms. Mergler. Can you hear me a little better now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can, Ms. Mergler.
Wonderful. Excellent. Alrighty. If WITN has the slides. Thank you very much. Okay, if you go to the next slide, please. Alrighty. This is a summary of funds allocated by category. I will go into each of the individual categories as we go along. So for here, I will just say that we started with an allocation of about $55 million. We have allocated about 48.7 million out of that amount. And we have about 6.7 million left remaining unallocated. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a slide that shows all new projects that we have that have come under contract since the last meeting. There is only one, and that is $75,000 for the Hope Commission for a women's reentry program. That falls under workforce development. Okay. In administrative costs, we start with a balance. We start with a budget of 1.8 million, and that entire amount has been allocated. The individual projects are shown underneath. Next slide, please. In building safer communities, we start with a budget of $8 million. We have allocated about 3.1 million. And we have about 4.9 million left remaining. As you can see, a large portion of that goes to the Community Public Safety Initiative. Next slide, please. Okay, in community investment, we start with a budget of about 4.9 million. We have allocated about 4.7, and we have about $120,000 left remaining unallocated. Individual projects shown beneath. And next slide. In neighborhood revitalization, we start with 22 million, and that 22 million has been allocated to these projects. Next slide. In workforce development, We start with a budget of 4 million. We have allocated about 2.3 million, and we have about 1.65 left remaining. As you can see, the one new project this month, Hope Commission project, is shown below. And then finally, on the last slide, revenue replacement and essential pay for essential workers remain unchanged. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Yes, just starting, Miss Mergler, with the Hope Women's Reentry Program, has that project actually started, or is this just the allocation for that project?
That is the allocation for the project. So we're in the process of we're in the beginning process, I would say, of allocating the funds. They still need to have their orientation with UHY. I don't know exactly how far the Hope Commission is in their own project, but it is a very new project to us.
All right. Is there any questions from members of the committee? Councilmember Bracy?
Good evening. I just have one quick question. Are you still accepting applications for workforce development projects?
Yes, proposals can still be submitted.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, I think Councilmember Harley was first.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Stephanie, are all the dollars going to one organization for workforce development right now?
No. WITN, if you wouldn't mind bringing that slide back up. But while they are, the largest portion goes to Newcastle County VOTEC School District. That is for a workforce development program that we are running. In addition to that, there's an allotment for the Delaware Art Museum, for DETV, and Hilltop Lutheran Neighborhood Center, and the Hope Commission.
Oh, that's considered workforce development. That's what confused me when I saw that. How is Delaware Art Museum considered
certainly.
workforce development?
They have developed a workforce development program where they are teaching local residents how to maintain and revitalize art, public art. So they will be working on statues and things like that. And, so to kind of help maintain public art. So it's a training program.
Okay,
That will help
thank you.
get
And then
jobs in that. Mhm.
okay, and then
And Hilltop Lutheran? Yeah, certainly. So Hilltop Lutheran has, and I should note that that project is still in the contract phase, but they have obtained a forklift simulator program. So they're building a program around that forklift simulator. So that will help people get jobs running forklifts.
Okay, and then I see Women's Reentry Program. So that's a new project. When does that start?
Let's see. Let me see if it says in their proposal, which I have right here. I believe it's ongoing. It's work that they're currently doing, but they asked for money to support their efforts. But I can find out
okay.
exactly from the Hope Commission and give you further detail.
Okay, and then lastly, DETV, because I know that they have a staff there now. So this money here would be to do what?
Absolutely. They have a youth development program. So they are bringing in local youth, teens, at-risk teens, and teaching them skills in media so that they can get jobs in mass communication and media. So all of these are essentially building our workforce. So they're all running programs to help other people get jobs, essentially. So.
Okay, which is great. I was just curious as to, how that connected to workforce development, because that's really not what you would call the classic of definition of workforce development. Usually it's, around a certain area, construction, development of some sort, mainly construction. That's one, way. And then other skills that's, electrician, I guess, and those particular fields. So that's
And I
why
will
I
say
was
the
wanting to get.
NCC vote, I'm so sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. The NCC VOTEC school district program it's centered entirely on construction. So it's teaching local students and construction skills. So they're actually working in our neighborhood revitalization projects on the east side and throughout the city and learning construction trade.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks a lot. That's all I have.
And as a follow-up, Ms. Mergler, especially, some of these workforce programs, is it possible at any point to have or at least a presentation on some aspects of the program? Because it seems to be a disconnect. Sometimes we're just learning about it on the council side, and say the VOTEC program seems like a really good, great program for the entire city and county. So that's maybe something that we could look forward in the future if any of these programs see fit, at least a presentation to council.
Absolutely. We would be happy to coordinate that.
Thank you very much. I would like to recognize Councilmember Oliver is present. First, I'll start with this room. Is there any more questions or concerns about the ARPA presentation?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, Councilmember Oliver, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I came in a little late, but I have been discussing this with several council members, and I think it's only appropriate for the funding that we have given to these organization for workforce development, for them to come in at some point in time and give a little 10-minute presentation. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much. Just so we can have an update, because when we're out in the community, people are saying, I know it's a workforce development program. Can we get involved? Can I get involved? And I'm like, no, we already have organizations that are involved. And when they ask me, I do say that organizations that are involved, and they say, well, we haven't seen them doing anything. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing anything. Thank you so much.
And I think probably as Councilmember Oliver stated, and I think if not all four, maybe a few of them, because this is something that's kind of new to us, and there's no other committee that's heard what they're doing. So we would just like some kind of updates. Vice Chair Harley.
Certainly.
Yes, and real quick, to underscore what has already been said, it's always good for us to know what's going on, because we're the ones out in the community. And when there are conversations going on and around, and we don't have information on it, it puts us at a disadvantage. That's number one. And then number two, there are programs and things that are happening where when we're at civic associations, these are the types of information that we like to bring to the civic associations to say, hey, DETV, they have a program now where they're doing workforce development around media, or, Delaware Arts Museum. So, it helps us as well to get the good information out to the community as to how we are spending, this money. So, like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse. So, keeping us informed, and even if there's new applications or proposals that are being submitted that have been accepted, it will be helpful to just, shoot us an email to say, hey, we got a new organization that we accepted. And that way we know about it as well, if possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
I believe we have a question from Marcella. Councilman Bracy first, and then Marshall.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one more question. Switching from the workforce development funds to building safer communities, there was an allotment of 8 million, and it looks like there's still 4.9 unallocated.
Correct.
And I was wondering if we have a plan on how we're going to get that out, or are you still accepting proposals? Are you making strategic outreach to partners? Because this is all about community public safety, so it's a little different than a workforce development program.
Yeah, so certainly. The Community Public Safety Initiative is only in its first phase. So that is those are the allocations you see so far. The 618, the 150, the 400, those we expect those to grow after this first phase is complete. So the remaining funds we expect to allocate for additional phases of the program, which will be coming soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Marshall?
Yes, Ms. Merkler, for the Building Safer Communities, is the total budget amount 8 million or is it 7 million?
8 million.
Okay. And also, under the neighborhood revitalization for the 22 million, for most of these projects, I assume that these are drawdowns. And the reason I'm asking is because we do have, it is $2 million budgeted for cost overruns and change orders, but I assume there's something in each person's contract that will prevent cost overruns unnecessarily, right?
Absolutely. It's mainly to prevent, and that's probably a category that's going to be reallocated soon if we don't start to see that it's necessary, given that we do have a 2024 deadline to have everything under contract. But for now, it's given that building costs and inflation are hard to predict, just in case, say, due to supply chain issues, somebody isn't able to get the materials they need, or if something runs over. The worst thing that we can think of is to start building on a project on the east side and then leave it halfway done. But we are doing our absolute best to make sure, given through our construction project manager and UHY, that projects are being bid properly and that costs are properly accounted for at the outset, rather than coming back and continually doing change orders.
Thank you.
And then as a follow-up to that, Ms. Mergler, is it possible if there are some runovers that there could be a potential use of any shares of either county or state ARPA funds?
Yeah, certainly. Especially, I would say, we're encouraging people to apply for state catalyst funds, which are also ARPA funds. That money especially covers gap funding. So the gap between what it costs to build the project versus what you can actually expect to get for it as affordable housing.
All right, thank you. Is there any, I guess we'll go to members of the public. Any comments or questions on ARPA? Seeing none, then I'll turn it back to members of council for any final questions or comments. All right, well, I appreciate it, Ms. Mergler, and thank you again for the monthly update. I would like to recognize Councilmember Fields from the 5th District, and I believe she has a comment.
Yes, thank you for recognizing me, committee chair. My question is, what if there are monies allocated to a particular community development, a particular rehab or redevelopment project or whatever, and that particular side of the city hasn't utilized their money? Could it be used for another district or another area?
Absolutely. We are keeping an eye on all spending as we get closer and closer to our 2024 deadline to have all funds under contract. if it seems that anybody isn't spending in an expedient process, in an expedient manner, we will be looking at reallocating those funds to somebody who can.
Thank you. That's all I have.
And thank you very much. If there's no other questions or comments from members of council, either here in person or on Zoom, then again, thank you, Ms. Mergler, for the monthly presentation. Look forward to updates next month. All right. And with that, we're going to move down the agenda. I hear feedback from somebody. Do we know who that is? WITN? Okay. Okay. All right. I appreciate everyone's patience while I believe the next item is the disparity report. We had the introduction of the quite lengthy and quite enlightening disparity study on minority and women contractors. Now we just wanted an update from the administration about kind of next steps. And we're going to be essentially doing this monthly, just seeing where we are in terms of progress. So I believe we have Chief of Staff, Ms. Tanny Washington. Floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. There hasn't been much change since the last time we met. The lead on the disparity study has actually been out of the country for most part of the month. But we will continue our meetings, internal meetings next week, and we will be addressing assigned staff to the disparity study who will be working on it across departments, as well as looking at new software related to data collection. So that's where we are. We'll start our meetings again, as I said, next week.
And just one question, Chief of Staff Washington. Again, I appreciate your time. Over the conversations over the past several weeks with several of my colleagues, one of the first, I guess the key questions is about a centralized website. That seemed like kind of low-hanging fruit of a way we can have progress, at least moving towards that direction of a central hub. Is that something that you're working with IT department on, where someone can go to a one-stop shop for procurement for each department?
Yes, that's all a part. When I said a centralized unit for data collection, that's what I meant, for website, and to also have something for our internal use to pull information from. So that's all a part of the conversation next week on looking at different vendors that provide that.
And as a follow-up, Ms. Washington, I believe there was a recent study with the state, with the disparities that exists at the state level as well. Is the city in contact with our state partners and kind of looking at maybe how to work together, or because I imagine the similar issues that exist in the state probably exist with the city too.
Yeah, that's correct. As you recall at the last presentation, Mr. Williams mentioned that they have their own subset of data, and we'll be joining with them and trying to pull as much of that into our own administration as we can, so that we can build it out on a broader base.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Chief of Staff Washington. Any comments or questions from members of the committee? All right. Seeing none, I want to turn it to members of the public. Any comments or questions on this study? Okay. Seeing none, final turn back to members of the committee. Any comments or questions? And again, just for everyone's information, this will be a placeholder monthly, as we do look forward to Mr. Williams and Mr. Park. Once they've had some movement, we look forward to hearing about the wonderful progress. And thank you very much, Chief of Staff Washington. And
Thank you.
now moving down the agenda, we do have an ordinance, I believe it's ordinance 23-007. I believe the prime sponsor is Councilmember Spadola. So since this is your ordinance, Councilmember Spadola, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to bring this before you tonight. The background for it is, one of our roles on council is an oversight role of the municipality in terms of the departments. And it's similar to being on a board of directors in the sense that we should set up good guardrails for the employees in the system to operate, to prevent issues, and so the public knows that we're being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. And this legislation specifically would prohibit hiring close relatives of currently sitting council members. Some caveats to that. Anybody who's currently on council staff, if they had a family member become elected into office, this would not affect them. And also, just to define what a close relative is, it is basically when you think of immediate family. It does not include cousins. So anybody's cousin could get hired on council staff after passing this. And so right now I'm not familiar with any nepotism issues in the council department. We've seen those issues at the statewide level. We've seen people get jammed up, and so this is just some good governance legislation to prevent any issues for anybody. And happy to take any questions.
Councilmember Oliver?
Yes. As we do try to do housekeeping, I know this was an issue, from the state issue, from the auditor's department or whatever. I don't know if this affects city council, and sometime we as council members, we hear or get involved with other issues that doesn't pertain to us. I don't know if I know of or even ever heard of anyone that has been hired, that have been immediate family on city council. But also, I would like to say this. I mean, we can let it come to the floor. For years, you've had individuals who are related. I mean, throughout this building, I've received 3 calls from Dover about this piece of legislation. One state rep stated to me her daughter's in college, her niece is also in a college down Delaware State, and they have them hired as pages. And you don't want to start, if you just say, for example, if you want to use the Frill family or the Capano family, they have been generational lawyers, attorneys, in politics, and you don't know if if your niece may want to come in as a secretary. And I can see where this is going, and I think it's good housekeeping to a certain extent. If you have, we could go from the funeral home to ShopRite grocery store. I mean, the Kennedy family, of course, they have their family in there. Nathan, Mr. Fields, he's with his father. He's been into construction all his life. That's all he knows. So if you have someone that's interested in getting into politics or just getting hired as a secretary or in the city of Wilmington, because your family has always been into that. So I don't know, I'm a little torn. You don't know if you want to, stop someone who may have a dream because that's all they've ever seen their family members do. And I understand this piece of legislation, but I wouldn't want it to, override somebody's dream. And I think we as council members are mature enough to know that we wouldn't overstep our boundaries, but to always, bring up legislation and putting it as an ordinance to stop a family member of living out their dream. I'm opposed to it. We have a whole building here with family members throughout this whole building. And I'm happy for them. They've been here for years. So this has been an ongoing process that family members have brought other family members in because they want to see them do well. And, especially right now with COVID and, you know, walking downtown and looking at these buildings, as well as, you know, the city building. We have all these vacancies, and now you want me to, so, let me say this. It also can't be a double sword. You can't ask me, not the council member, I'm just speaking out loud. You can't ask me to vote for residency to open it up for the public, but none of my family members can get hired because it's such a shortage. And I'm saying that to say right now, it's a different day and time all over the world. Because of COVID, people are working from home. So you may have a council member or that may have a family member that may be able to work from home. I mean, this could go on and on and on. But for me to receive calls from Dover, you know, laughing on the phone saying, what are y'all trying to do? You know, this makes no sense. I have family members working down here, and we're not going to stop it. So why are y'all making rules and regulations to hurt yourself? And I get it. Like I said, I think we're mature enough. We as a group can come together and say, I mean, we have leadership here that's been here for years that can look at resumes, but to put this into an ordinance, I mean, I'm on the fence about it. And that's all I have to say.
Councilmember Bracy?
Before you respond, Councilman, I just have one question. I think I'm clear, but I want to make sure. This is only for council hiring council staff. This doesn't apply to city staff, correct? Like, this is
Correct.
just if I was, you know, if there was an open vacancy in the city council office, I couldn't call my sister and say, hey, apply for this. This is just within our confines, not the whole building? Or
Correct.
is it the whole building?
The very few positions we have on council staff in
Okay.
WITM. That's the only part that.
Why wouldn't it be for the whole building?
Mr. Chair, can I continue?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, just in terms of Councilmember Oliver's comments, I think, you know, it sounded like she was defending some of the worst parts of the Delaware Way, where there can be way too much coziness with family members getting jobs that, you know, should be more of a meritocracy as opposed to who you know. And so this is basically to prevent that on city council. And at the state level, the context is important because it's just a much bigger organization.
Right.
Much bigger department. You know, we've got 10, 15 positions here.
Right.
So,
Okay, may I follow up?
Yes, Councilmember.
Yeah, and that's my point. Why is it just for city council and not for the whole building? Why is it, you know, my point is, I understand the whole concept of it all, but why would we as council members keep bringing up resolutions or ordinances that are affecting us opposed to going out there and supporting our community and coming up with some ordinances, let me finish, that, you know, go out there. I thought this position was about the people, helping the people, not to police city council. And I mean, we've all made some mistakes and we're not human, and I'm one of them. But to just say an ordinance that automatically attacks city council, I mean, we have members that work on city council and they have family members that's interested in running for office. So next you say, oh, you work for city council and your son or your daughter can't run for office because I'm on city council. I just don't agree with it, because really, you know, they can sign a waiver to say, long as the person who works in city council doesn't even look at the information. I mean, it's other ways to go about it, but if you start this, it just could be a snowball effect. And I'm in favor of it if it's for the whole building, it's for everybody in the building. But just to say city council, I just think that's not fair for city council to say, my niece can't come here for the summer and, you know, do the mailroom or do our mail. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, kids, if they come in, I've never known, far as I know, and I used to come up here before I was in city council, any individuals that worked in city council and their family members worked in city council. I've never heard of it. I've never seen it. And I've talked to people who've been on city council for over 30 years. or worked in city council, and they've never heard of it. So to put something in like that has never, I can see if it has occurred, it has never occurred before. So why are we putting this in when it has never occurred before? And let me say one last thing. Loretta Walsh worked in the sheriff's office, and her husband was the deputy. He was the sheriff, and she worked there for 20 years. And nobody said anything about that, and it hasn't taken place in city council. So why would we want to bring up something and start something that's not even taking place? I just don't understand, I just don't understand the logic. And I understand what you're saying, but on the other side, it doesn't pertain to us. If that happened at the state and the auditor's department, whatever happened there, let it stay there. And let's not trickle things onto us that is not even in our preview, and it never has happened. And I just think it's unfair to put unnecessary pressure on upcoming council members that may be coming after me and on all of us. Why put in an ordinance to hinder any kids that may be wanting to come in? As I stated, I mean, I can go as the Poppy family. They've been in this building for years. I just talked to Mr. Poppy. Their family has council, I mean, it could go on, and nobody's talking about them departments. So why are we talking about our department? I don't think it's that serious to get into. It's other things we could be doing out there, helping the community, helping our constituents, opposed to coming up with ordinances to stop individuals getting little part-time jobs. I just don't understand it. It has to be something to it.
Let's move to, Councilmember Spadola, I'll give you time. I wanted to move to just around the committee. Vice Chair Harley, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out a contrast that I think that is notable. And one is that in those other municipalities, people singly handpick these family members. And as we know, on council, we vote. So it's not one person voting for staff members. We actually have a system. I think we have a pretty good process where, if something came up that one of us felt as though it was a little too close or a little too cozy, we have a process in place that says, hey, this, we could talk about it, because again,
Vice Chair Harley, you're fading out. Is there anything that we can do on WIT inside?
It's her connection, Councilman.
okay, can you hear me now, Mr. Chair?
Yes. Yes, you're cleared out.
Okay. Okay, do I need to repeat what I just
We
said?
missed you like the past 30 seconds, so.
Okay, so my main point I was making was that city council has a process where we have, where we put names on legislation. We're already using legislation to hire staff. So I'm not sure what or why we're doing an ordinance when we already have legislation, a legislative process to hire council staff, which is distinctively different than what has happened in some of these other municipalities, where there were individuals that had the liberty to singularly handpick family members or relatives or friends or whatever they've been doing, which is totally different, from city council. So in my mind, I'm just trying to understand, are we being redundant with putting an ordinance in when we already put names on resolutions for staffing, one, and then two, we have an ethics committee that I would think would flag something like that if a council member was trying to hire someone in their immediate family. So I'm just putting information out there because this is a committee meeting, and it's about discussing and understanding and sharing information. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Councilmember Harley. Before the sponsor goes, is there any other comments or questions from members of council? All right. Well, first I'll go to public to see if there's any questions or comments from members of the public. Okay. All right, seeing none, then I'll turn it back to members of council for any second round of comments or questions. Councilmember Oliver.
Thank you. As I stated, I do understand where my colleague is going with this, but I have to reiterate what Councilwoman Harley stated. We already have something on the books that council members do vote on, and it's been on the books for I don't know how many years. I know at least over 50. I'm glad she brought that point up, where council members do vote on hiring staff, so it's already something on the books. And another thing, Delaware is small, Wilmington is small, Delaware is small. I know many people don't know, it's only 3 miles around this whole city from one side of town to the other. Somebody's going to know somebody. Somebody's going to be related to somebody. Not stating that we are hiring family members, but I just don't like the fact that, I just disagree with the fact that, you start putting stipulations and, you're unable to, hire, and who knows who's related. You have so many people related in this building, they have different last names, and everybody know who they are, but we only want to, I guess my whole problem is putting this on the backs of city council members when this whole building have relatives throughout the whole building. I just think it's unfair for us to put in an ordinance, for city council members to put in an ordinance that that will hinder our kids, our family members. And I'm totally against it. And it's not fair because the whole building has a family member working in this building. So the ordinance could say, we prohibit anybody in this building, they should be removed immediately. I go for it. But when you start talking about city council only, that is not fair.
All right, and I'm going to now turn to the sponsor.
Thank you, Council President. Just to the larger point, I did intend to originally include the other departments, and the city law department said that was outside the bounds of the charter because we would be stepping into the executive privilege. So I did not push that issue with them. I'd be happy to work on that with you. But I do think, being on council, before we look to other departments, it is important we hold ourselves to the highest ethical standards. It's why you don't throw stones living in glass houses. So we need to make sure that our ethics are top-notch, both in appearance and in fact. And so this is, and like you said, it hasn't happened before, and that's great. And we should continue to prevent having family members of elected officials, close relatives. Your niece could still get a job. It's just for the immediate family. It's at the, I'm not done.
Right, go
Madam,
ahead, go
I'm
ahead.
not done.
Yes, your floor.
So it's just a matter of, I understand nepotism is a problem in government in general, but that fact is, because of that, that's why we need it here. We can't just let it envelope every department as much as we can. While we can fight back against it, we should, and this is a way to do that. Thank you.
Well, I need to follow up.
Councilmember,
This is my
comment.
final comment. As Councilman Spadola just stated, the administration, which is the mayor that oversees the whole city, they have said no. The law department said no, this will not affect over the administration throughout the whole building because they know it doesn't sound right and they're not going to allow it. So they said no for the whole building to be involved, but we still want to take action on city council. Who are we to judge? We are all imperfect people judging other imperfect people. And I am totally against it. If it's not for the whole building, it's not fair for city council because then it starts to look another way. And I'm not going to say what way it would look because I know my council person is not like that member, but I know the majority of people who are on council are minorities. And if you're telling me we're going to put in something that's going to block majority of minorities and we haven't did it in 50, 60 years, and the mayor, the law department is saying no because the mayor's not going to allow it to happen because he has family members throughout this whole building, not him per se, but his family members throughout this whole building. why would council members put it on the backs of council members and family and friends? Some of us have large families, some of us have small families. I don't care if it's one in a family. If you have somebody in your family that wants to come and work part-time, as Councilwoman Harley stated, we already have something in place that's been in place for 50 years. If it's, we have staff, we have a chief of staff, we have assistant chief of staff, we have accountant, we have people who've been in here, the clerk, they've been here for over 30 years, 27, 30 years. And we have a reputable chief of staff. They know how to look at stuff, and we vote on it. It's going to come across the floor. We as council members, that's where we're office to do, is vote on things, and we will vote accordingly. Like I stated, I'm not perfect. I've made some mistakes, and I'm speaking of the mistakes I've made. But for us to just put this on the backs of council, we have enough to worry about with voting on districts that we shouldn't be voting on. Now we voting on council members, families that shouldn't be on. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And I think myself, I think this, and I say it all the time, this is not my seat, this is the people's seat. Let's go out there and help our communities. Why are we always trying to police council members? And I say that literally because every time, something comes around, it's council members, this council member. Why won't we go out there and find something, legislation, ordinance, to try to help the city of Wilmington move forward, opposed to trying to stagnate everything? I don't get it, but I understand where you're coming from. What happened with the state had nothing to do with us, and we haven't did anything of that magnitude to put in an ordinance to say nobody from your family can work up here. I disagree. My niece is interested in running for office, and she comes up here for an intern and may need 20 hours. Why not let her come up here and do a free 20 hours and give her a letter, non-paying or whatever? I mean, it's other ways to go about it. Like Councilman Harley said, we vote on this. And I just don't like that we always is just putting in stuff to mess, and I want to say, to stagnate council members. And you wonder why you go to these meetings and people don't want to get involved. And you hear this time and time over again. You council members, every time I turn around, y'all doing something to hurt yourself. You're doing something, you're fighting each other. Y'all going to the AG's office to hurt each other. I mean, it's on and on and on. Why won't we go out there and help the community, the people who elected you in office? And that's all I have to say. So I'm going to be voting no on this.
Vice Chair Harley, and this is again, final round of comments. Final
Yes,
comments.
I get that. So two things. One, I really, believe in ethics. I mean, I'm a strong ethical person. And so for that reason, I would never want to be on the side of not voting for something that deals with ethics. But at the same time, I would like the sponsor to answer two questions. So one, let's say Marshall's relative would like to work as city council, would that be an issue? I'm just trying to get clarity on when we say city council staff, like how, I know you mean no council members relative, but what about the staff having relatives to work on the council? That's number one question. I got another one, but can you answer that?
Sure, this would not affect hiring relatives of staff. It's simply to prevent council members from getting elected and trying to get a close relative a plum job.
Okay, you answered that question. And then secondly, you don't feel that the fact that we vote on staff as a collective body, that is not sufficient in terms of, as one of the what I want to say, how we can avoid that, because most certainly, if something like that came up, all seven, you got the whole council that would see something like that on legislation. And so I just wanted to know from you, had you thought about that already, or you hadn't thought about it? And what are your thoughts about us already having that process in place?
the point of this legislation, and to answer your question, is I don't think family members of sitting council members should be getting staff jobs. Can I continue with my closing comments?
Yes.
Thank you. So there were some inaccuracies with what Councilmember Oliver said. Just to clarify, the mayor's office has not spoken on this. They have no opinion of it. The law
Yes, they
department
have.
simply said.
I'm sorry.
You're,
Yes,
you're-
they have.
You're thinking of another piece
It's
of
not fair.
legislation. The law department simply said that it's outside of council bounds to speak on who the executive branches can hire and not hire. If anybody's here from the administration, I'd be happy to hear from them. And Councilmember Oliver is absolutely right when she talks about the nepotism and corruption that has plagued governments across the country for decades. But this is an opportunity to do better. Just because it's the way things were done doesn't mean we should continue to support nepotism. And a vote for this is a vote for good ethics and a vote against nepotism. Thank you.
And
Yeah, but can you answer my question though, council member?
I answered in the comments.
okay, and I don't,
Okay.
and in closing, I appreciate the debate. I did get a point of reference. I believe Councilmember Mills is not a co-sponsor of this ordinance. He asked to be removed. I think the only comments I really have is, of course, we have to continue to work as a unified council, and this does seem to be a highly contested issue. And I think we've been working well on council together to tackle many of the problems with gun violence, housing, housing issues, poverty, bringing the city back. So this does seem to be a matter that needs to be addressed in the future. I'm not sure if there's a carve out for maybe internships or non-paid positions. I don't know if we can make that legal distinction. But some members do have a lot of heartache. For me personally, I'm good with it, but I understand there's a lot of concerns from members of council. So it's up to the sponsor. This is an ordinance, so it does need to be voted. It's up to the sponsor.
Yeah, I'm not
Floor is yours.
holding it.
Okay, all right. Well, it's an ordinance, so it does require a vote.
Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, so at this time, is there a motion to move ordinance 23 -007 out of committee to full council for a vote?
Motion.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Well, at this time, I will be asking for a roll call vote. All right, Vice Chair Harley,
Present.
Councilmember Bracy,
Yes.
Councilmember Field,
Yes.
Councilmember Oliver,
Present.
Councilmember Spadola,
Yes.
Council President Conga,
Yes.
and I will be a yes. All right, so it's been properly moved, and ordinance 23-007 will be moved to full council for a vote. I'm not sure the meeting date. I know we have budget coming up, but council staff will let us know. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone. Again, thank you for being engaged, everyone at home. Again, this is the time to debate issues that matter, and issues that matter not only to council staff, but also to the city, because we do need a well-functioning and well-governed city council to continue to move the city forward. So I appreciate everybody being involved, ways we can do better as a council, and we certainly appreciate public input. As always, for the ARPA, please email ARPAideas at wilmingtonde.gov, and stay tuned to WITN. We are going to have as always, the full city council budget process will be online, and it will be viewable, and we ask for the public to engage. We do have, I believe, a point of reference. We have the mayor's budget address coming up on Thursday, March 16th. I'm not sure the time. Is it 6? Okay, 6 p.m. All right. Confirm it's 6 p.m.
What's the date again?
It's Thursday, March 16th, so it's next Thursday.
It's my birthday.
So please, that's going to be, it's always a great occasion. Everyone convenes. I believe it's going to be live in person for the first time in a few years. So we look forward to having everyone engage. The mayor is going to give an update as to what his plans are for the city and working with city council to move us forward. So Without further ado, at this time, if there's no other question or comments. Oh, and actually, I apologize for ordinance 23-007, we went to public comment? Want to clarify? Okay.
We did.
We did, okay. Wanted to clarify that. All right, I believe that completes our agenda. And this time I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
All right.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, thank you.
Have a good evening.
See everyone soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.